So the control that you'll be changing most of all is gain. You'll see right now the image is really dark. If I adjust this, I can turn it to there, which is about right, or I can make it extremely bright, which is too much. You want it in between so that what should be black, which is fluids, so the bladder for example, or a gestation sac, is a nice black colour, and the detail in between, that you get the right shades of grey in there. So anything that's gas, like gas in the bowel or bone for example, they should be bright white. Everything else should not be bright white, so about there is about right really. The next most important control would be depth. So on the A5, it's here. You'll see it says depth, focus and zoom. So if you do nothing and just twizzle the knob, that's depth. If you press it once, that allows you to change your focal point. This is your focal point here. You always want that at or just below the region of interest. So say that was a puppy there, I would want my focal point probably about there, just below it. Remember that anything below the focal point will be not in good focus compared to everything above or at the focal point. The beam diverges after your focal point. So some people you see scanning like this with the focal point right at the top, and that's very bad practice. You're not getting the most out of your machine. Always have it at your region of interest. Zoom is if you wanted to zoom in on a particular thing. So say you had a gestation sac, you may want to zoom in on it, but it's unlikely that you need to do that. To be honest, the depth control is the most useful because normally you're looking at several sacs at once. So try not to scan really far out with these tiny sacs at the top. Try and bring your depth down so that they fill up the whole screen. I know it's hard, I'm scanning my liver, so it's hard to show you exactly, but just, you know, if you imagine there's a couple of gestation sacs there, you want it to fill up as much of the screen as possible so you see as much detail as possible. If they're all the way stuck at the top, you can hardly see them, it's going to make your job a lot more difficult. The other thing you need to know is freeze. That's your freeze button there. So when you get a great image, you can press your freeze. You can use your tracker ball here to go back. So say you're scanning your dog, you get a great image, and then just as you freeze it, she moves and you've lost it. Don't worry, you can use your tracker ball and go back and find that image again. So the great thing about freeze is from here you can save. That's your save button there. You just press that once and you can say single image, save the image. The other thing you can do here on this screen is you can take measurements. You may not want to do that immediately if you're just getting used to your machine, but it's pretty simple. There's a distance button here. Press that and you would just set your point here, and then wherever you wanted to go to, you know, imagining a sac again, but say it was there, and then it's going to come up on the screen, it's going to tell you the distance between those 2 points. You can do calculations, that's your calculation button there, and you have all different packages for calculations. I won't go through them all now, it's probably a bit too much to start with. We go through that in depth on level 2 as well, but there's different packages, so like crown rump length, gestational sac length, and different stages in gestation. It's more appropriate to use different calculation packages to work out the ages of the fetuses. Other functions you might use: frequency. You've got a shortcut button here, it says freak, and you can change your frequency quickly by pressing that. So remember, big dog, you need high penetration, that means you need a low frequency, so you can put it right down to 4 megahertz. Small dog, like a Chihuahua, you can go for great detail, you don't need a lot of penetration, it's a tiny dog, so you can put it right up to 9 megahertz and you're going to get a beautiful image, not sacrifice anything in terms of penetration. If you click this menu button, this brings up a number of other factors. I don't have my contact lenses in, so I'm going to get closer here. Okay, frequency is the same, we've just gone through it. You can control it on the menu if you want, but you've got your shortcut here. Dynamic range, you may want to change that. Basically, if I bring it down, let me get my liver back, hold on. Okay, so if I bring my dynamic range down, can you see how it's a really contrasted image? It's really just black and white. And if I bring it up, there's a huge range of greys there now. It's a really milky image, it's almost too much. So, I mean, there's no right or wrong number, so don't get tempted to say, oh, what number should it be on? It really depends on what you're scanning. People will tend to have a wide dynamic range, so they'll have a high number if they were scanning something like a liver, like I am now. For pregnancy scanning, they might have it a bit lower, because especially in early pregnancy, you're searching for those sacs. You want to pick out something with high contrast. You want to see black against a grey background, so you might bring it down. To be honest, right now I would just leave it how it is. It's going to be the right kind of setting for abdominal scanning on dogs as it is, but it's just as you get more advanced, you might want to know other ways you can optimise your image. So that's one good way that you can improve the image that you're getting. And one other thing is persistence. So that's kind of like frame averaging. So right now I've turned it down. I don't know if you can see if it's coming out, but the image is a lot more grainy, but it's really responsive. So if I move quickly over my liver, like imagine you had a panting dog or something like that, you see it responds pretty quickly. If I turn it up high, the image is a lot smoother, and if I'm stationary, you can see it's actually quite a beautiful image. But if I move that fast again, you just see nothing. It's just a cloud. So again, I would just leave it how it is right now, but if you ever encountered that problem where you did have a dog that was sort of hyperventilating, which does happen sometimes, they do pant a lot, and your image was just too blurry and you couldn't get anything, then you might want to change that again. Similarly, some people have dogs that just fall asleep when they're scanning, and you might be able to change the persistence so that you get a really beautiful image and there's not much movement going on, so you're not going to encounter any problems with a sort of a laggy or unresponsive image. So that's another thing you can play with eventually. But to start with, to try and keep it simple, I would just practice using your gain. Use that every single time you scan. Your depth, again, every single time you scan, you should be using your depth. And your focal point as well. So depth, press once, focal point, and gain. They're really, really important, the three most important things. Here is your fine tune of your gain, so it's exactly the same as this, it's just it controls it at different levels. So if I bring it down here, do you see how at the bottom it's got darker? Now it's brighter. At the top, darker, brighter. So either just have it as a slope like that, or some people like to keep them kind of in the middle. Again, that's something you should learn to play around with, but perhaps to start with, have them just a slope like that, or all in a line to begin with, because the machine will compensate when they're in a line anyway. I hope that helps and isn't too confusing. Just ask me if you've got any more questions or there's anything specific you want me to show you.